reason why I brought Ryan on here today is he has some of the most interesting insights into the spiritual world whilst being extremely grounded and living in reality at the same time, like working the land with his actual hands and being grounded. And at the same time, does some crazy videos and visual stuff with drones as well. So we're going to chat about so many things today, mate. But I really want to talk to, like, where are you right now, and what is it that you do on the land around where you are?
So currently, me and my father's been a farmer my whole life, and like he was a successful entrepreneur and businessman, but on the weekends he was like exclusively an organic farmer, and like that was his shit. So he was up at 6 a.m. planting organic vegetable farm, having orchards. He's had all sorts of different visions of what he is as a farmer. But as he retired, it became something serious. Like he didn't know what to do when he wasn't working all the time. So he just started diving into agriculture in a bigger way. So it started with like acquiring an avocado farm, and he started doing the avocados. And then a friend of mine from high school was a sommelier in a lot of the fancier restaurants over here on the West Coast in California. And my friend was like, dude, no one's doing organic, fresh takes on wine. It's all old school, traditional, old world style wine. So Napa and Sonoma are doing wine in a French style or wine in an Italian style. And he was like, why don't we kind of do our own angle, go organic? There's some wine country that's close to us, but it's kind of considered B grade. Not too many people are commuting for it. It's like if you're a local, you go there, but we're not known. Yeah. And he's like, what if we could put our appellation on the map and people start actually trying to drink our wine? And so then we just started in. And kind of when my dad starts with anything, it kind of gets out of control really fast. And so now we have about 40 acres of planted varietals, and they're all Rhone varietals, so southern France, or Italian varietals that are on a similar latitude to the latitude I'm on here in Southern California. So I'm not having to try to grow Merlot or try to grow Cabernet. Syrah, Grenache, Mourvedre, they want to grow here, and I just step back. And so we started that kind of around, like, I'd probably say 2016. It started getting serious.
Right. How long in you were planting the vines at that time, or they were already in?
It started as we'd go to neighbors and harvest their grapes and make wine in the garage and see if it was edible. Yeah. And after a few successful missions of doing that, it became real serious that we needed our own grapes and our own quality control.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
So then we acquired more property, started planting vines when my daughter was born in like 2016, 2017. Right. And then by the time the lockdowns happened, we already had our own vintages in bottles. So then it became, how do we go legal? And so we jumped through all the bullshit hoops to become legal drug dealers. And now a lot of fancy restaurants around here pour my wine, and we're in a few grocery stores. We're trying to get in a few different like wine stores. I don't know if you have Total Wine where you are, but it's pretty much like a really big store just full of everybody's wine. And so we're trying to get in there. And so that's kind of been my dad's retirement passion project, and it dovetails with my interests because after my I've had many spiritual awakenings, but after one of them I got really into astrology. And so the next jump from being an organic farm to like the next levels, going Rudolf Steiner style and going biodynamic. And then you're essentially doing astrology for plants. And so it just made my astrology obsession pick up steam. And I'd be telling the guys, oh, like, you can't harvest, the moon's waning. And they'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, well, I'll tell you when to harvest. And so now we've started, putting some of those processes in what we do. And I think it all has effects. Whenever you consciously do anything, it has effects on the end product.
Have you, yeah, I guess that's the hard piece, right? Because energy goes where energy flows where attention is, right? So it's, okay, I'm putting my conscious effort in here. And so it's hard for things not to change just from that. But have you noticed from the let's encompass that in biodynamics, organic to that, and using astrology, have you noticed anything? Have you noticed any ease and grace that falls with it? And have you noticed any change in the product itself?
If anything, I would say I'm seeing changes in myself.
Cool. We're gonna dive into that. I wanna have a bit more time with this wine first, because I think that's so interesting. In terms
I'm
of,
not a drinker, right? So I like drugs, but I don't like alcohol, and so
makes sense.
I very rarely partake. And when I do, it's like I'm tasting things to make sure what we're doing is sound and the flavors that we want are coming out. And that's the way I drink wine, opposed to trying to catch a buzz.
Yeah.
And so I feel like everything we've made in this current format has been pleasing to the palate for sure. And then the ease and grace aspect is just you're going with the flow of what wants to happen anyways. And you're no longer caught up in your mental of how you expect it should go or what would look like if it was good, shall we say. It's more like, no, it's just going to go how it goes. And if you play by ear and respond to what's being requested, you'll be ready. It's when you get ahead of it with your mind that then it's not what you anticipated, and now you have to rethink it again. Instead of just going with the flow, there's these recalibrations that have to happen because your forecast didn't happen.
I think that's so funny. I'll share another story maybe later on down the path, but it's this interesting piece of the vision that we have, which leads to the expectations that we have, which leads to this is how we need to do it, rather than, funnily enough, it's very stressful. And then the other part is when we're present in the moment, it's like, oh, this is what's happening right now. Okay, cool. If I was to be guided by great wisdom, what would be the needed action, if any, right now that I take? And then we take that piece at the right time, at the divine time, and then we move on to the next one. Okay, cool. Well, I'll respond when I need to with the next change that happens. Yes. I think, man, that's such a beautiful thing. And that is not the farming that I've experienced in New Zealand. I mean, in New Zealand, we are very dairy orientated, especially where I am. We're very, very green. We have a lot of grass. So we're heavy in the dairy industry, which is pretty heavy on a lot of our environments. And then all with sheep and beef, which is waned in its many years because people have been much drawn to the money side of dairy or what it can produce. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's very much based on expectations, and then of course the payouts, and then you've got all these things that roll with it. So I'm interested to hear. It's very. Have you watched the movie Bottle Shock?
Oh, I feel like I watched it, but I watched it one time.
Yeah, it's like you're reminding me of it's Californian wine, and they made it. So this French guy, well, he's English, living in France, comes over to try some international wine and goes, oh, I wonder what the Americans have got going on. Ends up taking this wine back and doing this tasting. I won't ruin it for the people that are doing it, but very similar. Father owns the chateau as such, and in America, and he was struggling at the time, and his son was this kind of out there character on the edge of, on the edge of like, let's do this, let's try that. And they end up coming up with this phenomenal product. But it's very interesting to see how this plays out.
And isn't that like it's the first time the Americans beat the French, right?
Ever. First time ever. Yeah. And it's this introduction of like, holy moly, maybe other people can do this. So before, like, I guess it's interesting that you mentioned your father, because that's our blood lineage. That's the person who has an impact on how we think and feel and navigate the world. So in our early days, what was his main sort of business as an entrepreneur?
I actually run it now.
Yeah.
My grandfather in the 70s was an industrial designer, and he was hanging out with a bunch of guys from Xerox and a bunch of the companies that blew up in IT and computers before it
Right.
happened. And it
Right.
sounds like my grandpa's garage was like where dudes would go and potentially drop acid and think up these ideas.
I
And
like a granddad already.
he got invited to go to a GE conference where they were introducing new technologies. And one of those technologies was a version of injection molding called structural foam molding.
Yes.
And my grandpa started doing structural foam molding kind of in his garage and started getting small accounts together of his guys who were making IT stuff who needed some sort of a box to put their equipment in. And it's just kept picking up steam. And my dad went to school at UC Davis to be a vet. And while my dad's at school to be a vet, my grandfather's business is picking up steam. And my grandpa kind of called my dad and said, "Quit college, you need to come home." And my dad came home and started running the business. And then my dad is a Taurus, and we get into astrology later, but Tauruses are like autistic for the marketplace and the economy. So my grandpa was a Libra. So he's an idea man, a designer, a starter. And then my dad's the fixed earth sign who's like, no, wait, I can make money out of this. And so he made the company successful, moved it from, it was in Long Beach at its birth. He moved it inland and got a bigger facility, more equipment, and then, paid my way through life and made it so I was never thinking about the economies of things. And so
Wow.
it's been my only real job. Like I worked at a Kentucky Fried Chicken for a while. I worked in construction for a while. But for the most part, I've worked at that factory. And now, when I retired him, I became president, and that was about 6 years ago.
Wow. And so, how much, I guess, being a president of the company, how much time do you have to come back onto the farm? And
Not very much. Like
okay.
I would tell you that my participation in farming has to do with the timing of things because I
Right.
know the astrology part.
Yeah.
And then I developed a real cannabis habit in high school through my 20s. And I don't know if you know, but in California, Humboldt and Mendocino are in Northern California, and those are the famous places to go smoke weed.
Okay.
And so in the fall after I graduated, I would always go up north and smoke with the farmers and smoke with the real guys who were smoking. And they were always impressed that I could be like, "That's sour diesel, that's Kush, that's green crack." And they'd be like, how do you know that? Like, only guys who grew up here know that. And I'm like, I don't know. They tell me the names, I smell them, and I just started doing that. And it all swapped over into wine. And so
That
now I
is
can
crazy.
smell wine and taste wine, and my sommelier buddy will be like, "Dude, that's crazy. Like, you shouldn't. How are you trained in that?" And it's because I trained in cannabis, and and so I'm the taste maker and the smell maker for the guys who are doing it. And then also I like the winemaking aspect. So in harvest season, I enjoy participating in the pick and seeing the fruit. It's kind of like the celebration, right?
Yeah. Okay.
It's really a lot of fun to be in the vineyard with everybody and going, "Holy shit, look at this cluster, bro." And like everybody's like, "Yeah." Um, and so I like that part, and I like turning it into wine. But as far as the day to day of farming goes, it's my dad and his crew.
Cool. Okay. Wow. So it's almost like you're the oversight and go, here's the timings, guys. This is what we're going to kind of be working with.
Yes.
And how's your dad, I guess, taken to that and because often it's the other way down, right? We get wisdom from the top. Father's older, he tells us how it's going to be, and we go and do that. Your dad obviously had some experience in business, so probably sees a lot of wisdom everywhere. But how's your dad taken to this idea? Because my son's crazy. Like, he's into this star shit. Like, what are we doing here? How has that gone down?
It's been super funny because when I first started intuiting all of this, I was woo woo and I was crazy and I took too many psychedelics and I'm cracked
Yeah.
and I'm schizophrenic with religious undertones, right? But then I started being able to call things for real. And so he had always thought I was a conspiracy theorist. And then we're rolling into COVID and I'm telling him how it's going to go, and I'm right. And then, right. And so you can only deal with so many of those situations where I told him about Bitcoin when it was $3, right? And I was cracked and crazy. And so he's having to, now I'm almost watching him have the existential situation of, your son's kind of been telling you the truth about it, a lot of this for about 15 years. And he maybe couldn't articulate it from like a Western perspective without bad language and without woo-woo feelings about things.
Yeah.
But he's been right. And then I've really noticed him take a step back as far as running our business, because he is a much more traditional 80s, 90s business person.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I don't know, man, I drive shit by feel. And that really made him scared initially. But now he's going, the guy ran the company through COVID. A lot of our competitors lost their business in that time. He's still making it so I can play this game over here because, you know, I'm paying him retirement that makes it so he's got pockets full of cash to pay people and keep doing his dream. And so I think now, even though he doesn't necessarily understand everything I'm saying, there's mutual respect. And so then he has to consider what I have to say.
That's amazing, because that is I'll use the derogatory term, but the boomers, right? Right, they get a lot of flack for not being open to the next generation's crazy ideas and things like that, and rightfully so. Like, they've grown up in a world that was pretty damn straight, so it's a hard nut to crack. So I'm really impressed with your dad. That's awesome. That's really awesome.
I feel like out of the boomer class, he's definitely more open.
Yeah, that's impressive. I want to go back to kind of, what were you like as a kid?
An attention whore and an adrenaline junkie.
What did you do for those two things?
I would, if you were asked, I'd be like the class clown of a lot of situations, like the talkative kid in class, kind of just living in my mental. And then at home, I always liked race cars, always liked go-karts, always liked dirt bikes. And then that's been kind of the segue into being the FPV pilot, because I don't want to sacrifice my body, but I still want the adrenaline of maybe like a crash in an FPV quad feels like I crashed a real thing, and I might destroy something that costs money. And so it still triggers those same feelings, but I can do it without worrying about being hurt. And then I can still keep up with my kids and my life.
Explain, what is it? FP, what do you call it?
It's first person view. So I'm wearing goggles that let me see through the camera in the quad. And I call it a quad. A drone means it's smart. So a drone will self-level itself. It'll respond to wind. It'll hold in the air. Mine, if I'm not flying, falls out of the sky.
Right.
It's
and it looks like
open.
you have so many of them, or is it that you're always just fixing up the same one? Because I watch it, I'm like, that's another crash.
Both. Both things are happening. And so I have too many aircraft in my quiver for sure. Right. And I also do repairs.
Right. Okay, cool. And so you were, let's call you the class clown, moving in, adrenaline junkie class clown. When did you, I guess, have your first kind of spiritual awakening, as we call it, or the first crack? Not the drug crack.
I'm going to college. I met my wife when I was 20 years old.
Wow.
And we just started dating because we liked smoking weed together and hanging out together. It was very casual of how we met. And then we started living together, and I had experimented with mushrooms from like 17 to 21, kind of in that range. But every time I did it, it was a pretty intense experience. And so it was hard for me to bring anything of value back from those experiences. And my wife had less experience. So she was kind of always trolling me, like, come on, let's eat mushrooms again. Come on, let's eat mushrooms again. And I'm about 27 and I'm running the sales manager gig for my factory. And so there's just a lot of stress, dude. I'm having a hard time going to bed. On the weekends, I'm stressing out about the week. During the week, I'm stressing out about what calls are going to come up the next day, what customers going to be hitting me up, what are they mad about today, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies, my sommelier buddy, got a bunch of mushrooms from one of the chefs who works for him at the club that he works at. And he's like, let's check these out. And so I made some tea, and I made the tea incorrectly. I didn't know that you weren't supposed to boil the water. And so I damaged the psilocybin, but it made it so I had a very low dose experience. And me and my wife and my buddy played soccer on my lawn for like 3 hours. And it was like the first time I had taken all that stress out of my backpack and just set it down somewhere and went and was a kid. And I was like, man, there's really something here. Like, I need to go find more of these. Well, at the time, I'm 27, so it's like 2000 and I don't know, I'm not good at math, 10. Mushrooms weren't readily available. If you're going to smuggle drugs, LSD's cheaper and easier to smuggle. Cannabis is worth more money. And so nobody was dealing in it. And luckily, a Hispanic woman who works for me, I came out of the psychedelic closet to her at work and told her I had had this experience. And she was like, I know like a shamanista who works in these types of things and I can get you some. And so I got those and made the tea correctly. And I collapsed on my lawn with my wife. And at the time, I was like a staunch atheist, man. I would have fought you about God. I would have talked shit on the Bible. And a white light came and told me that I was being very judgmental of religious people. And I didn't know what I was talking about. And if it helps them, they should be free to do that. And I should leave that alone. And I at least had the wisdom to just go, I'm sorry. I understand. I'm sorry. And then it let me have like the most wonderful day. I had crazy memories of friendships and how important those friendships were to me, how important my wife was to me. And then it just sent me on a psychedelic escapade. And for pretty much that year of my life, I did mushrooms every weekend.
Wow.
And that was the first big one where it was like, okay, now I like astrology. I like all religions. I like anybody's story about God. I don't have an idol that I'm associated with, so anybody's idol's cool to me. And so then it just became, let's go back to all this information with a clean lens.
Wow, 27. Okay. So now let's go back to all this knowledge, all these things with this non-judgmental, clean lens. I guess we just start. Like, what were some of the things that kind of lead you down the golden path?
So the psychedelics were the first one, and I almost didn't even believe people were having spiritual experiences without the psychedelics.
Yeah.
And so I'm listening to Terrence McKenna, who's like, oh, dude, like I get yoga and I get all that stuff, but I get it better if I smoke a joint. I get it better if I have a mushroom. And so I was kind of following in those shaman roots, right? I'm listening to Aubrey Marcus talk about similar spiritual experiences and the downloads he's having. Joe Rogan, obviously, with his DMT talk and all of that. And so I'm still playing in the psychedelics, and then my wife gets pregnant with our first child, and I have an existential crisis. And now knowing more about astrology, it was my 30th birthday as well, so I was having my Saturn return. And so in all the ways that I was behaving as her son, and that was an okay relationship when we were single people and we just live together and she makes me sandwiches and shit and gives me sex, that's fine. But when we have to raise a little person together, the rules need to change. And she didn't really know how to articulate that. and I didn't really know what was happening to me. And then there's part of me that was feeling guilty that I'm making your pregnancy and our daughter being born about my fucking like mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And I've been pretty solid, right? Like I've been someone you can count on, and now I'm not someone you can count on. I'm someone going, the sky is falling. Oh my God. And so I feel like that's the first one where it was like almost like I had unearned wisdom. And so I was operating from a level of consciousness that was at an enlightened level. But when I really had shit going on, it exposed that enlightenment was not grounded.
That right there is, because this is where I want to go. There are so many people, I think more and more so now, maybe because of the access to psychedelics. We get the person on their 12th ayahuasca ceremony, they're going back and back again. And I've seen it play out, the shattering of a reality and the real cracking into one's soul in this kind of spiritual awakening. And they don't know how to deal with the 3D world. Like, fucking hell, this is mad. I remember being on a course once, and it was called IMS1. It's Paul Chek's first movement course. We're going there, and this guy came in, and he was a full vegan dude, very spiritual, very, kind of airy-fairy. And it only took into day 2, and we were starting to do some lifts and some biomechanics. And before that, he was quite anxious, didn't know what was going on, and kind of a bit withdrawn. And then he did some deadlifts, just deadlift, bro. Just pick shit up, and he put it back down again. And he's like, "Ooh, I feel pretty good." I'm like, "Man, it's because you're grounding yourself, mate. You're in this very spiritual, airy-fairy world, and you haven't realized that that's awesome stuff. And you've probably got a wealth of knowledge and everything that would be so beneficial to us, but it's going to mean nothing unless you like punch it back down onto this earth and actually live in that learned experience and embodiment of what you've brought back from this other realm." And we see it. I mean, the piss takers, the Balinese life coach. The people who move to Bali and then have a spiritual awakening, and then they're all life coaches for the rest of their lives. And I'm like, what have you embodied? What have you brought back? And so I really want to understand, what was the process of, you've had this experience, you're having this existential crisis. Funny you mentioned 30, because that was a funny time for me as well. You got this child coming to the world. So you got 9 months to get your shit together, basically. And you kind of want to do it before then, so your wife at least can relax into her feminine and feel safe. How did you go about grounding all the stuff that was coming into you?
It was unconscious, right? And so it was all unconscious, and I did what I thought I needed to do, right? So mimic your father, mimic other fathers you respect, reach out to them, then realize that the fathers you respect, they aren't necessarily anything outside yourself. So if they're doing it, you got this, sort of thing. But it was very unconscious. And so I'm reaching out to the fathers that I know for their piece. And I remember I called my mechanic crying on the phone, and he's like, "Dude, you're having a baby. That's awesome. Like, it's the best." And he has 3 kids. He's got 2 twins and a son. And he's like, "Dude, it's the best. Like, you're going to love it. I know you're going to love it. Like, fucking relax." But there was pretty much nothing anyone could do, including myself, until my daughter arrived.
Wow.
And then my daughter arriving was a very grounding experience. Like, first holding her, first driving her home from the hospital, figuring out what that all looked like and what my new day-to-day looked like. But there was still definite resistance to it. There was parts of my identity that still wanted to be my wife's son. There's parts of my identity that still wanted it to be the Brian show. Like I mentioned, I was a attention whore, and now nobody gives a fuck to see Brian. They want to see your daughter, Charlie. And so that took some getting used to. And I think it's why there's such a gap between my firstborn and my son. There's 4 years there, because that was my unconscious calibration.
Wow.
And I remember there was a moment where, like, my wife's wanting to have another kid, And it's almost like at that time I'm humoring her and saying like, yeah, we could do that, but it's not grounded internally. It's me telling her what she wants to hear. And one day we were out in the car and I'm just like, no, let's have another kid. And it was like, I wanted to have another kid. It wasn't, I'm telling you what you need to hear to love me and to be open with me. I'm on board now. And we had like a renaissance of our relationship, making that boy. And then that boy was born at my house and I delivered him in 2020 during the lockdowns.
Wow.
And that changed everything. I was smoking weed because it was Easter weekend. So I'm smoking pot, playing Fallout, dude. And my midwife had just told me like, oh no, you're fine. You're not going to have the baby. You got to probably another couple days. And my daughter comes down and she's like, mom's water broke, dude. And I have to run upstairs and deliver my boy. And dude, after that, it was like, not only was my son born, but I was reborn.
That's an initiation, eh? That right there is an initiation.
4.
Shit. It's amazing that we, when we spoke at our last event, we call it a retreat. It's not really a retreat. A reclamation is more of a better word. But whether I have this belief is that it was done strategically, but this removal of elders from our world, and like you said, you're calling these fathers up, going, fuck, like surely someone's got something for me that is going to make me feel at ease. And all these things should have happened years before for us men. Years before we would have had some, not the pregnancy part, but the initiations into the concept that we are everything, that we are all of it, that we have the knowledge inside of us. Not just the initiation, though, the elders to then ground our integration through the next process. Like, it's like, okay, cool. Now you've had the initiation. Let me help you ground this awareness that you've got and thread it throughout your life. And it's amazing that you've had such a positive experience through the initiation of becoming a father. Like obviously, and the second time around, that's not true for a lot of people. It just, a lot of people come into it anxious, and then it's just like sprinkling freaking petrol on the fire. You know, the kid comes out and their life just completely collapses. This idea that you managed to understand that you were in a relationship with your mother, you know, as a son, you were being nurtured and looked after, and that was what you enjoyed, and you still had the Brian show. Man, to have that awareness that you're in that and that's changing, men will do that in their entire life. Or what I see is men get divorced and then they go to somewhere like Thailand or, you know, off to the island somewhere where it's more traditional, and they just go find another mother. Someone who will look after them, someone who will nurse them and feed them and do all these things. And I'm just like, it makes me a little bit sick inside to think the grossness of marrying your mother and making love to your mother. And I realize that's an infatuation as a child, because that is how we're connected, and we break that. But it's amazing, like really amazing. And many guys might not understand how amazing it is that you put those dots together yourself and went through that initiation yourself and then did the integration as well.
Well, I would say that a lot of those realizations were unconscious, and I kicked and screamed in resistance for, it seems like, probably years.
Yeah.
And as I've collected more knowledge and understood myself more, I've been able to articulate it better and understand it better for myself, which then helps me in now. Yeah. Right? Understanding my story better helps me understand my present.
That really is, even like just doing it unconsciously, even if it was for years, is a phenomenal development, because that is by far not the majority of truth for many men. They will live that out until they hit enough pain that something has to change, or they die.
Well, thanks, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate the kudos.
Well done. And so now we're in 2020, You've had your son? Yeah. You're going through this initiation. Do you reckon having a son was different to having a daughter? Was there any? Yeah, interesting. Tell me
The
about that.
daughter
Like,
breaks your heart,
yeah.
and the son makes you a man.
Wow.
And so the son, at least in my experience, my son made me way more confident and comfortable in my masculinity. And my daughter, I would have already described myself as kind of a feminine man. Because the psychedelics crack that open anyways, right? As you start interacting with the feels and your receptive side of things, you start to understand your feminine side more. But then it was like the daughter's like, no, I'm gonna blow your heart open and even change this to another extent.
Wow. Break your heart and the other one makes you a man. It's really interesting, eh? I'm gonna have to do some reflections on what, because even, we've spoken briefly and we'll get to it, like the changes that have happened in our lives over the last 6 months even. So then we're in 2020. When's astrology kicking in at this stage?
So I got pretty into astrology before my daughter was born, kind of when I was on that psychedelic pilgrimage.
Okay.
And so I was already in the phase of going like, oh shit, okay, you got pregnant in Gemini. That means we're going to have a Pisces baby and a Pisces baby. And like the day she was born, I'm running her chart and going like, okay, she's ascended Aquarius. She's going to get along with my ascended Leo. She has a Capricorn moon. She's going to like my Virgo moon. And just like comparing her chart to my wife's chart and my chart and seeing how they would either butt heads or be nice matches. And so that had already kind of taken off. And so I can't help but see everything in the world now through the astrology lens.
Yeah.
I would say that it's like my accepted, just kind of like holistic view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would describe the day in astrological terms. So the spring is sunrise, summer is daytime, fall is sunset, winter is night. And so the characteristics of all of those archetypes are going to show up in the daytime, and then they're also going to show up in the yearly cycle. It's just two separate cycles. One's a 24-hour cycle, one's a 360-degree cycle. But you're going to see all the archetypes come up the same because it all has to do with how the sun is refracting light. And so in the way that I know how an Aries is going to behave, an Aries is the start of spring. So that's like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. I know I'm not going to see a sunset at 6 a.m. That's not woo-woo. It's facts. I'm not going to see Aquarius at noon. That's Cancer time. I'm not going to see Aquarius. It's not going to happen. Aquarius is at 3 a.m.
What do you mean by that? What can you explain that a bit more for me so I can understand?
So I'm going to give credit to Santos Bonacci. He taught me astrology.
Okay.
Not personally, but I found his YouTube. So he would say that in the same way that we have solstices and equinoxes, okay? Mm-hmm. The equinoxes would be 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Because at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., you have equal times light and dark. Then the solstices are going to be noon because it's the most daylight, and then midnight because there's no daylight.
Right. Okay.
And so when you start understanding that pattern, then you can start applying that pattern to the day. So astrology, you get 30 days per zodiac sign. But if I convert that to a 24-hour cycle, it's 2 hours per sign. So 6 to 8 is Aries, 8 to 10 is Taurus, 10 to noon is Gemini, noon to 2 is Cancer, 2 to 4 is Leo, 4 to 6 is Virgo. And then it even follows a pattern. So Aries is seen as an athletic sign. Most people work out from 6 to 8 in the morning. Taurus is the eater. They're seen as the mouth. You eat breakfast at 8 to 10. Gemini's the talker. That's when you're first getting in the office, you're getting a second cup of coffee and kind of bullshitting with the people in your cubie. Leo is 2 to 4. That's traditionally when a lot of cultures take a nap. It's a cat nap.
Yeah, siesta.
Virgo, my guy right here, he's the belly, and that's 4 to 6. That's when a lot of people eat dinner.
Man.
Scorpio time is 8 to 10. You're going to try to get laid. And so there's just these really simple ways of understanding your day. And then the other part I was trying to tell you is Aries, by definition, is a sign of the morning, a sign of the start of something. So you're not going to anticipate seeing the end of something at that time.
Wow.
You're going to be starting something at that time. And when you start really understanding how all that works, then you understand that the opposite of that sign is where the shadow would be cast. So if there's an Aries standing here and the sun is here, the shadow is going to be on Libra because Libra is the Aries' opposite sign.
Wow.
So Aries has to integrate the characteristics of a Libra to be its full expression, or it will project Libra shit all over everyone and say that it's that other person. When really it's just your shadow projecting and leaking all over the environment.
That is phenomenal. That right there. Wow. Okay. Wow. So then you can look at the aspects of Libra, reflect on that within yourself and go, cool, where is this shining? Where is my shadow right now? Or this is my shadow right now. It's these things. How do I bring them into the light and not
And so
project them?
I'm a Scorpio, so my shadow casts in Taurus. My father's Taurus and my wife are Taurus because I guess I just went for it.
Yes. I want a double dose, baby. Like, let's double down on this. Like, if we're going to learn, we're going to learn fast and we're going to learn in the fire.
Yeah, I guess.
Wow. And so when they say, like, when two different signs don't get along, is it quite often because one is the shadow of the other?
If the other person is unconscious. If you're unconscious, you're going to be saying that shadow's not me. That's all the things I'm not. That's all the things I don't like. And then that tends to be triggering stuff in another person. Where if you're more integrated and more conscious, you'll see that person's good at your weaknesses.
Oh, wow. This is amazing. It's amazing because of over it's probably the last 9 months to a year. It's really interesting. When it's funny, I had this conversation with somebody today. When you're surviving,
mm-hmm.
the number one problem is to survive. So other problems in the world just aren't problems, right? They're just, you don't talk about what's in the news. You don't talk about, because there's no time for that shit. I'm too busy trying to survive. And as we acclimatize and reach another level of affluence or something like that, we get these random problems. Like, you might have the problem of transgender, or you have this problem of COVID, or you have these random problems that pop up and they become very triggering for people. And I'm like, but if I took you all down to surviving, then that'd be a very, very quick level of awareness. And so I looked at another angle of the lens. I went, cool, well, let's say we are surviving, or let's say surviving is just the inclusion of a much greater problem that we see. And I thought, man, we live on this tiny little globe and we think we're a closed circuit. And most of the time, everybody's like, we're a closed circuit. Things are going to be the same forever. I'm like, well, no. And then I started getting into the climate change aspect of things. And I was like, okay, cool. Again, with this closed circuit, right? So everything. And I'm like, and I started reading bits and pieces more about like the galactic sheet and the electronic universe and these things like this. And I was like, it would make sense that a massive burning fire quite close to us, relatively, could have an impact on us. And it would also make sense that everything is energy, so everything has a wave and a frequency, that then if we're at the top or bottom or middle of a wave, depending on thousands of years or whatever, that's going to have a particularly different impact. Just as it does when I listen to music, a different wave has a different sound. It connects to me. I hear a bass or I hear a treble, and I'm like, suddenly my brain's exploding, and I'm going, we could be in a lot more trouble than we even know about, that we don't know about, And we're worried about these small things that we're talking about here. And I'm like, me on Earth is thinking, to me, the biggest problem is waste. I'm like, we need to sort that out. That's my biggest issue. But then I'm like, and at the same time, we should probably stop fighting and bring ourselves together, because I think there might be a greater problem that we might want to be facing, that we might want to look at, but we're still focused, distracted. I would consider would be a better word, distracted by, and this is where it gets a bit conspiracy theory wise. It's like, well, why aren't we? Why isn't it the bigger picture that focuses on the galactic current sheet, or how the solar system affects us, or how there's cosmology and astrology and all these things outside of us? They get talked down to, like, oh, you're just crazy, Brian. Like, that sounds just bizarre. I'm like, nah, dude. Planets, the moon has a pretty big effect on some things, and all these other aspects are like, shouldn't we be talking about those things first, and then
the moon is kind of in the Western view of things, a real small planet, and it's making your tides, it's making your breeding season, it's making your months, it's making your wife have a period. Like, it's doing some stuff.
It's like, but it's whatever, man. Like,
yeah, dude, why do you care about what moon phase you're in, dude? That's lame. You're woo woo.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's really starting to crack me open in some places, and I'm like, holy shit. And
all right, I want to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole with you.
Let's go there.
So you got me pumped because you talked about the climate change. And so, are you familiar with the Yuga cycle?
Yes, not familiar enough, but 12,000 years? Was it 6?
So it's 6,000 years per cycle. It's 24,000 years for the whole cycle, because it's all the same clock.
That's right.
And so we were living in the Kali Yuga. Me and you are the last survivors of the Kali Yuga. And that's the Hindus' version of the system. If you were to look at the Greek system, they call it the Iron Age. And so we were in the Dark Ages, and I almost feel like Lord of the Rings is before the fall of man. Fall of man happened in our recorded history as the Dark Ages.
Yeah. Okay.
Jesus was the first Messiah after the Dark Ages.
Yes.
We killed him because we wanted to get dark. We weren't going to be able to get down the way we wanted to with that Messiah around. But the Mayan calendar ends in 2012, and everybody thought that was the end of the world. I think the Mayans just made a calendar for the Kali.
Yeah.
The Kali's over. And so the new Yuga is the Dwapara Yuga, or the Bronze Era in the Greek system. And if you read about the Dwapara, it says it's the electric age. And the Age of Aquarius is another Greek version of that, and the Aquarian is the electricity in the air. It's the god of air, is Aquarius. Wow. And so I was enlightened by electronics. I'm pretty sure you were enlightened by electronics and our electric technology. And according to the Yuga cycle, there's a pole shift. And so the West is telling you, oh, the North Pole is going to become the South Pole, and everything's going to fly off the globe or whatever. Yeah. I would tell you it's a polarity shift. And you were in a feminine age in Jesus's time in Pisces, and now you are in a masculine age in the Age of Aquarius. So in the Piscean age, we worshipped water. So we have relationships, we have friendships, we have citizenship. Everything's a ship. All our resources are liquid. River banks control the money and the currency and the current, right? Well, as the creators, right, the architects, the controllers know what the hell time it is. So we're in the sign of air. So all our data is going in the cloud. All the stuff that has value is intellectual, because intellectual property is in the air. All the money's going to blockchain because that's electronic, and that's intellectual property, and that's the air. And so the banks are restructuring, because the banks and the elites, they just control the funnel of currency, whatever the current is. And so when we were in the water current, they had to control the water current through river banks, dams, all that sort of technology. Now you're having the technology shift over to the electric age and the age of air. And so at these yuga points and yuga shifts, there tends to be large catastrophes. And so a large catastrophe coming our way wouldn't be outrageous to me. And then also with that change, you're having the change in polarity, where the conversation we're having is very intellectual and very masculine, which goes with the times. The other aspect of it is in the Piscean realm, their mantra is I believe. So I have the American dream. Do you believe the earth is round? Do you believe in climate change? Do you believe in COVID? Do you believe in politics? No. Because I know, and so I don't believe in any of that shit. And Aquarius knows. That's the difference. And so we're speaking on things we know about. None of this is myth, metaphor. This is stuff me and you have personal grounded experience with. It's not belief.
It's interesting you talk about because this is where I head to the problem, the catastrophe. And there's I can't remember the Japanese lady who had these premonition dreams of like the foretell, and we've got the 5th of July coming up, which is hugely connected to a massive eruption around the Ring of Fire and new land coming up, basically off the base of Japan. And it's really interesting because a whole lot of things are happening at the same time. We have a weakened magnetosphere of the Earth. We have more, it's not necessarily more, but you do have more sunspots because there's more galactic dust, as they call it, which then causes more coronal mass and injections from the sun, which can be larger, but they don't need to necessarily be larger because we have a weakened magnetic sphere to protect us from electromagnetic
radiation.
But then, of course, that radiation is entering the Earth to another level. We are literally a molten thing with hard edges. We literally float around a molten thing. And at the same time, we're all energetic beings filled with water. So I was like, every person's getting hit. They're getting, we could call it new awakenings or new stresses or whatever those things are for them. The Earth, there's more volcanic activity. There's all these things kind of going on. Everything is spelling out change. Everything is spelling out like catastrophe. And there's a part of me that's like, I've just had a son. I don't want catastrophe. I really love how life is right now. It's beautiful. Does that mean I'm going to go back to the dark ages? And then there's the conspiracy that, there's $21 trillion or something missing in the American budget. And they're like, well, they reckon it's gone to underground bunkers and building in all the things around there for what's coming. And I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah. But is this going to be a metaphorical shift in catastrophe, or is this going to be both? Are we going to have a physical catastrophe followed by this new age, the bronze age of the yuga? And I'd love your insights on some of this, because this has been sitting, all these little dots are kind of sitting on a wall for me, and I'm like, I don't know if I can put all this together. Is it too much stress for me to worry about? Should I just be loving on my son and continuing on with what I believe is my purpose, or should I be getting out there, digging a hole, and learning how to bloody kill animals and protect myself? All of the things.
When I was a younger father, I had more of the prepper spirit, and those things would make me prep, right? And it's like, oh, I got to get ready. Some shit's going to pop off. I live in America. I got to get some guns. I need a good fence. Yeah. Like, what am I doing here? I got to have cows. I eat a lot of steak. Where as I've learned more about this, in the Bible, they talk about 144,000 people get saved when the catastrophe comes, when Revelation comes. Well, the Hindus have a similar situation that they put on the chakra system, and the crown chakra has 144,000 petals. And in the last 6 months, my suit has turned on. And it's requesting me to balance all these chakras and understand how these chakras work and get them working correctly. And so I don't know if we're going Terrence McKenna style, where we're going to go post-organic. I don't know if we're going far enough to go post-organic.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling that if you've made connection through the crown chakra back to God, whatever sort of language is safe for you,
Yeah.
you're on the new timeline. Where if you are resisting all of that, because it's just electricity, man. We know this is all a hologram. It's all refracted light. If you're resisting your refraction, if you're resisting the reflection that's necessary for you to be on the new timeline, you're coming off the timeline.
Wow.
Where if you're working with the energy that's being provided and you're already tuning into the new radio channel, then why wouldn't you be on the new timeline?
Shit.
And it's unfortunate, but I'm seeing the boomers literally boom. It's almost like their moniker was made by people who knew what was going to go down. And it's like they're detonating and having their fuses pop, and they can't integrate any of this stuff that I'm talking about. And they either blow me off or don't do it. And so if you're not going to do that work, you're sending a very clear signal to the hologram that you don't intend to participate.
Man. Okay. So how does this relate to building underground bunkers and doing the physical thing of trying to protect oneself and family?
I think that's the elites that are lost in the materialistic sauce and would like to continue playing materialism, yet they have all the science that tells them they're in a hologram.
Yeah.
And so if you want power, if you want authority, if you want human hierarchy, all those systems are about to go, baby.
Yeah.
And so you can either go with those systems that you have attachments to, or you can integrate into the new process. And so those of us who are willing to integrate into the new process and are, dude, to be honest, really excited about the new process. I'm tired of playing those tired games. And so
heavy games, heavy energy, slow, cumbersome, lacking.
Well, it's from the Iron Ages, right? And so all those things were created during the Dark Ages, and even the religions that are still on in the hologram are from old ages. So the Abrahamic traditions are all of the time of Aries 4,000 years ago. Aries is a war planet, a war sign, the masculine aspects of Mars. And you see that in the Abrahamic desert religions, where they can't figure out how to stop fighting each other and eye for an eye and all this stupid bullshit. And then you get the Piscean version, which is the Jesus version, which is compassion for all. It's okay, just turn the other cheek. No, it's not. It's not okay to get slapped. Like, what are you talking about? And so, yeah, you have these old ideologies that are hanging on, trying to pull themselves into present day, and they're 4,000 years old. No wonder you're having problems. What if you're using a 4,000-year-old anything? It doesn't, you don't have a phone, you don't have a car, you don't have farming practices, you don't have any modern shit if you take an ideology from that time and try to apply it to now. But that's what they're doing with their religions. And so if you're clinging, and the religion of kind of our generation is capitalism, democracy. Those are old, tired mechanisms that worked for their time, but they're old, tired mechanisms. And so we only get the communism, right? That can be your choice. Communism or capitalism, Coke or Pepsi, red or blue. And you're like, well, it's kind of more sophisticated than that, man. We're kind of pretty sophisticated. I don't think we got to boil it down to that. But as long as we're still boiling it down to that, you're probably getting gone with the rapture.
Okay, so we're shifting into the age of Aquarius?
You're in the age of Aquarius, and you're in the lots of different interpretations of the yugas. They say that there's like kind of a break between yugas where there's like a 600-year period or some shit of all the shakeup that's required to go from the Kali Yuga to the Dwapara Yuga. But then I've seen other interpretations where they're like, no, you're going straight to a golden age. You're in a weird opportunity to just go to Satya Yuga, which that's the highest yuga in the yogic traditions, the Hindu traditions, or the golden age in the Greek traditions. And I started cracking up because Daddy Trump started talking about the golden age and all the Republicans, and it just had me cracking up because he's talking to a bunch of Christian Republicans and he's telling them super weird shit because according to the Christians, Jesus is going to return and they all get saved. And I don't necessarily have that opinion on it.
Yeah. Man, is he that smart or is he just talking old school?
I think he's probably way smarter than we give him credit for.
Yeah.
He's just also an egotistical narcissist, right? And so he's really intelligent, but he's also a kind of a dickhead.
I love it. Oh, mate, this is just kind of blown the top off me quite a bit and actually invigorated some things in me as well. Of like, I had this conversation with one of my mentors yesterday, and I've always tried to work out, like, what is my story? I wonder what the journey's been like. When I look at it, I've been very blessed, and I've 99.9% of the time, I've been a very, very happy man and had wonderful people in my life, friends and family and loved ones. And I was like, most of the people who get into my space of mentoring have gone through some giant level of suffering and processes and things, and have come to this space because of that. I never came to this space because of that. I just loved being really happy. And I was like, how do I figure out all the things of why I'm so happy? And then just put them into models so other people can really enjoy this level of happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably that, and that led me to business, which then threw me into some fires and some like, fucking hell, I've got to learn some shit here. There's a little bit of suffering here. And I went through about 6 years ago, I started my process into the very esoteric side of education and learning, and I went through those codes that I showed you on the wall. I went through what's called the Master's Way. Those were channeled through a lady called Ishtar, and I spent 3 years kind of in this process. And with my expectations, my ego, if I do this work, I'll make more money, or things will change, and business will take off, and blah blah blah. And I was like, there's this real beautiful feminine part, but I stayed in that for a long period of time, and nothing much changed in life. I was like, yeah, I kind of know more about myself, and I certainly know more about my wounds and where I project from and where I, try to build from. And then what I realized is how much I was out of my masculine, which is the creation and the driving and the actually grounding things into place. And then when literally in the last 6 months has just been this beautiful like link of coming together. I'm like, wow, the things that I've understood and never been able to articulate on both sides of the fence have really started to peel together. And just being able to share with people the idea of, cool, create from a place of lack. And I've always mentioned this, create from that place. Cool, you'll create stuff. You always will. You step into your masculine, you can create a whole bunch of stuff, but you'll receive the energy that you created that from. So I was always still coming from a place of lack or doing these things. I was like, cool, use that beautiful feminine, use that energetic aspect to build this beautiful foundation of abundance and heart and everything, and then punch it behind absolute aligned, purpose-driven masculine, and watch how shit starts to change. And I tell you, bro, it fucking rattled some cages. Like, wow. Like, I've never had the amount of hate that I've had spat at me in the last couple of months. And then just over the last 6 months, how that has changed. And I've seen where I created so many of my issues that I have now. I was like, oh, that's because I started that then. 18 months ago, I started that, and that's why it's popping up now. And that's where you miss that. And that's where, wow. And then just going forward and seeing how different this energy is to be in, and how it impacts people well outside your sphere that you've barely touched. And they're like, hey, bro, like when you said this, or hey, bro, we shook hands once, or this happened, and this is now happening in my life. And I'm like, man, that's kind of a lot of what's going on in my life at the moment as well. Like, it sounds like some pennies are dropping around the place. But then again, a lot of the leaders who are in spaces that I consider I haven't had direct mentorship with them, but I've followed them for a while and have kind of gone, oh, that's a great idea. That's a bit of watching them get smashed as well. And I'm like, holy mo, I did not expect that to be said about you or to happen to you. And I'm like, who else is getting hit? And, and I'm back in the doing the next level of that course now. And I'm like, man, this is happening all over the show. And I'm really interested on your experience over the last little while, what's kind of come alive for you and what you've observed and what you've seen and what you've done about it.
So just you doing this is kind of bonkers. So I have my third son. I'm tired. It's 2022. I'm tired. And my Instagram algorithm's like, hey, dude, what about Kratom? Kratom seems pretty cool. And I'm like, hell yeah, it does. And so I take some Kratom, and Kratom's like ecstasy mixed with Adderall. And so I'm going around doing everything I need to do, kind of becoming like a superstar. It's like locking me into the energy I want. I'm doing okay at work. I'm doing okay as a dad. If I'm coming home tired, I chug some Kratom and I go play with the kids. Shit is good until shit's not good because you're doing too much of the green dragon. And so I hurt myself. And 2024, I was an opium addict who was tired, shot, still drinking the Kratom, not having the good effects. If anything, it was superpowering me being in a bad mood, me being resistant, me not wanting to do what I have to do. And so in January, I just had a real come to Jesus meeting with myself. I'm really good at discipline when I decide to.
Yeah.
And so I just quit Kratom cold turkey. And so the first quarter moon a quarter moon's the half moon, if you were to look at it.
Okay.
So the moon tells you where you are in the month. The new moon's the first day of the month. The half moon's a quarter of the month. The full moon's half the month. The next quarter moon's 3/4 of the month. And then the new moon starts the next month. And that's how a Muslim 13-month moon calendar works.
Right.
And so the first quarter comes, and January is Capricorn, and Capricorn balances itself against Cancer. So Capricorn's the marketplace, your work ethic, how you make stuff. Cancer's your family life. And a whole bunch of stuff channeled to me, and it's super interesting because my power went out. And so I live in a rural area, and I didn't have power, and it's nighttime, and my family's asleep, and I'm sort of losing my mind. I'm coming off of drugs. I used to call it dancing with my shadow. At bedtime, dance with your insecurities around business, around your money, around your wife, whatever you're insecure about. Like, think about that before bed.
Yeah, great time.
So I'm doing one of those, and I'm like, no, I don't have to do this. Like, you've taught yourself all this weird spiritual stuff. Like, jump up off the ground. I sleep on the ground on a biomat.
Nice.
I'm like, jump off the ground, do some Tai Chi, do some Qigong, do some push-ups, just do some jumping jacks, get the chi moving, right? Get my chi moving, and I dive into my chakra system. And at the time, it was like my heart chakra was the cherry on top. That was a place I could get to for reprieve, for gratitude, for feelings of wholeness, these sorts of things. And I get to my heart, and it just starts sending me clear messages about how I need to balance my business life with my family life. And it was so profound that the next day, dude, I woke up just like on fire. Like how they say that people are on fire for the Lord. I woke up just on fire, and my wife's looking at me like, what's going on with you? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm on fire for the Lord. And I had a friend who was living with me, and I'm like, the Messiah is born. And he's like, the Messiah's here. Like, what are you talking about? And it just kept giving me messages till the full moon. And then it would stop, and it would let me integrate all those messages. And then February comes, and I brought my kids to Disneyland. I had a trade show in Anaheim. And so I'm doing the trade show in Anaheim. My wife brings the kids to Disney. I'm like, I'll walk over there from the trade show, and I'll come find you guys at Disneyland. I'm walking, dude. I'm miserable, right? I'm coming off drugs still. And I'm like, I'm going to do Kratom as one last hurrah. I'm going to blow the doors out and go to Disneyland. So I drink the Kratom and I do a walking meditation the whole way to Disneyland. And I get in my heart chakra. And Disneyland's kind of a trap for me, dude. It's really easy to start meditating with the rest of the dads about how we're wasting all our money and we're eating Nestle garbage and you shouldn't even be eating this. And then it's $14. And now I'm going to buy a Chinese slave shop stuffed animal. Like, this is all driving me crazy. And somehow I was able to go in the frequency of all the children having a Disney day. And so I'm walking into Disneyland by myself, dude, literally like shedding tears of joy. And there's people on people movers who are too overweight to walk. And I'm like, that's just someone's aunt. She's lovely. And I'm just loving everyone, dude, like pulling a Jesus maneuver on the whole thing. And I find my family and I'm like, honey, the Messiah's here, dude. The Messiah made it to Disneyland. And it's literally like the best Disneyland trip I've ever been on. And then I went to the Disneyland Hotel because I was staying there for the trade show. And the hotel's like a church. And normally I'd be like, this is a horrible, like, general contractor building just to suck people's chi and money out of them, right? This is like a structure to enslave you. And instead I'm like, no, this is a church of the happiness of every kid who got to stay here and have a week at Disneyland with their folks. Like, this is amazing.
Wow.
And so it's just continued like that. Every month, at the quarter moon, I get some sort of a spiritual download that I need to integrate in that month. And it has taught me to control my chakra system. And how you were describing that when you were stuck in your feminine side, you got the feels and you got the love, but you don't have the drive. When you're in your masculine side, it's just a doer. He's just a doer. There's no meaning. You're just a printer. Who cares why I'm even fucking doing it?
Yeah.
If you marry these two pieces, your passion tells you why you're doing what you're doing. And now it's a completed circuit and you're fulfilled. Your work is fulfilling you. Your work is feeding you. Your work, all of it just becomes, and it's something that I can't even remember what Aubrey Marcus podcast I was listening to, but one of the guests was saying, like, as you approach the real alignment, all of life is erotic. And it's because everything here is erotic. The ground is negatively charged. The air is positively charged. They're just rubbing on each other, right? The whole thing is sex. And so you can make your whole creative life and constructive life into that same exercise if you know what you're doing energetically. And so I had a similar situation where I'd turned on my negative and I was stuck in my feminine side because a lot of my quote unquote powers are my feminine side. My intuition, my foresight, my third eye, all of that stuck in my feminine channel. So that I liked those superpowers. I'm constantly smoking cannabis, which is a feminine plant, getting into my feminine side. And the relationships that I had built in that feminine side, when I aligned the deal, all of them are mad at me. All of them are mad at me. So I worked with a guru for a few years who's an excellent guy. He sent me a bunch of stuff about what an ugly narcissistic asshole I am. And my business partner who I'm working on with this vineyard has sent me some shit that I'm just an asshole. And my mechanic that I've worked with for 15 years is moving and we're parting ways. And so a lot of my masculine partnerships are breaking up right now. And they're breaking up and then the funny part is all of this work that I've done over the last 7 months is me integrating my shadow. And so I know I'm a narcissist. That's why I'm so charismatic. I know I'm self-serving. That's why I can have a family and I can support my father and I can have a factory that employs 100 people. If I don't think this much of myself, I can't get that much. And so keeping it in balance where I tell my wife, I try to make sure that the higher table is making the decisions. If my solar plexus is being informed by my root and my sacral chakra, I'm going to manipulate people for the things that I want.
Yeah.
Where if my solar plexus is under the authority of my heart chakra, I'm going to do the best for all. The me flips over into we when you cross the threshold in your heart chakra. And then it's about how can I make the furthest impact rather than an impact for myself.
Mate, you have just, the relationships that I made when I was in my feminine, how they have shattered
Blown up.
integrating the masculine. Shattered. The arrogance of me, the manipulator, the narcissist. I'm like, yeah, man, I am all of those things. And I'm still integrating because I still feel the trigger piece to it, and working with the mother wound at the moment, the matriarchal mother wound, and seeing the beautiful manipulation of the mothers, and trying to wedge between the father and the son, and like all these things, and just seeing how it play out, so I can own that part, and looking at the manipulator and being like, yeah, I use story for teaching. That
well,
is
and then the
manipulation.
manipulator part makes you a good teacher. It's a superpower. Now, if I use it to feed my own lust and my own greed and my own desires, then yeah, I'm an asshole. And I've done that before.
100%. Yeah, 100% have definitely done that.
But now I'm not unconscious. And so I can own that. And then I can go, oh no, like my manipulator ability is what makes it so I can articulate esoteric weird shit and make it palatable to a normie.
Yes. Nailed it.
And that's why I have that. And so I had to figure it out, and I figured it out by burning some people, including myself. But it's valuable now that it's in action.
Yeah. And now it's aligned with what's going forward in your life. And it's what happened in life and business. Once those things had been destroyed, everything started taking off. Everything started taking off. It's been a crazy couple of weeks. Yesterday, I had one of my best days, let go of being busy, stepped into my zone of genius, and I couldn't hold myself back of expressing to a couple of people of like what I created. And I'm like, I know I've just birthed one of the best masculine balanced programs that I could have ever created, like ever. And it's just got me so excited. I'm like, I need to just empty out my calendar. I got to let this shit just keep channeling in, because it's just it's coming in at such a rate. And I must admit, it's where the beautiful thing of technology is. Like, you've got AI now, so everything that comes in, I'm like, format that for me. Like, yeah, cool. Okay, cool. All right, beautiful. Right, here's what it looks like in my mind. Can you put that into a piece of paper? And it's like, I can.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm like, it's amazing how fast you can create things now. Like,
yeah.
Because like the electrical, it was really interesting. You talked about the air and the electronic era, and it's like, wow, you can manifest things very, very fast.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Coming out of thin air, where before you had to wait for a downpour, you had to channel that water the right way, you had to have the locks and the dams correct, like they can't have any debris in the channel, like all this stupid bullshit, where now it's just out of thin air. I need it out of thin air.
Yeah, like that. And it's just, I'm beyond excited for what's coming through, and sharing it, and how much been dealing with divine timing and kind of letting go recently, and being like, oh, that was horrible at the time, but that was perfect how that happened. And then that's allowed me to think, and everything it's just such a lovely experience of letting go. And like, oh, okay, cool. Then I saw this quote the other day, and I kind of manipulated it for myself. There's always three answers to a prayer. Yes, but not right now. Yes, but I have something else in mind. And it's just, it's always yes, but it's like, yes, but not right now. Yes, but I had something else in mind. And I'm like, wow. Every time I think of that and I just let go to this idea, it's like, yep, but not right now. Oh, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Yes, but I've got something else in mind. Oh, I'm excited for what that something else is, because I know it would have been better than what I could have come up with. And
Dude, that was the thing that I started noticing, that what I was asking for, I'd ask for abundance and I'd get an abundance of mess. I'd get an abundance of problems. I'd get an abundance of something. And when I initially started it, it's like, no, just keep it general. Like, you don't want to get something too specific. And then it's like, well, you weren't specific enough, bro. So we just sent abundance. That's what you asked for. And they always say yes. That's the
always.
other part that people don't understand. If you're like, oh, of course this was going to happen to me, and the only way it could be worse is if this happens, the universe is like, boom, baby, happening. And you're all, what the fuck? And it's because the universe is funny. And so when you understand the
Cosmic
universe
joke.
is funny, your reaction of laughing at the curse came right when you asked is the correct answer. And then the universe will start working with you. But if you get more pissed off, the universe is like, oh, we didn't do it for him yet. Throw something else at him. And you're only asking for problems. So more of that shit's coming down the pipe.
Until it's funny. Rowan Atkinson goes, I think he quoted Charlie Chaplin, life in close-up is all suffering, but life from, I can't remember what it is in filming, life from the long lens, basically life from afar, is a complete comedy. And it's really interesting, because I'm like, wow, that is very, very spot on. When you're in it, you're like, fuck, I just can't see a way out. This is complete suffering. You take a step back and you're like, that is just a cosmic joke. That is hilarious. How could that have even, wow.
Hilarious.
That is hilarious. Hilarious.
And it's like every Seinfeld show you watched, it was a problem that made the comedy.
Every time.
Right? Every time. And so if you're willing to laugh at yourself and laugh at the situation, the universe is real quick to help you fix it. Where if you're not willing to laugh and let it roll off you, it doubles down. It's like, come on, it's trying to get you to reach your breaking point and make it funny. And then I feel like it's almost like an unconscious breathing exercise with your solar plexus.
Yes.
It's forcing you to do the breath work that you don't want to do, and that would help you process this. It's like, oh, okay, then you're not going to do the breath work, then you better laugh. And I think it's why people have laughing fits when they eat mushrooms. It's forcing the unconscious stuff to happen. So it's like, hey, dude, I didn't really like my mushroom trip. I cried the whole time. Well, how often do you cry? Never. Well, so it was getting it in. It made you take your supplements. And you didn't like taking your supplements, but it helped you energetically. And now today you feel better, right? And 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh, no, I feel way better today.
Yeah.
And so we have so much innate wisdom on board, right? Like the resentful, when you're annoyed at people, it's just like, dude, breath of fire, like blow out your bad chi in your sacral chakra, like get that out. Where unconsciously we're going like, no, I'm so pissed off, so that's why I'm huffing and puffing, when the organism's trying to find some form of like balance. And so it's like, blow this bad chi off, dude. And we make it more about like, oh, I'm sharing my emotions passive aggressively, when really the wisdom of the suit is trying to retain its balance.
That's so good. The religion of the suit. It cracks me up talking about the laughter. I watch my son, who'll turn 1 in a couple of weeks. He'll just be sitting there by himself, having a wild time, not looking at anything, not playing with anything, just and I'm like, mate, are you seeing something I'm not seeing?
Dude, there's so much joy in the suit before we've traumatized them.
So good. So good. It's just filled with it. I'm like, you're amazing. I'm going to be more like you. Don't worry about being more like me. I'm going to be more like you. This is how we're going to roll this. This is the goods.
Absolutely. I think that's some crazy wisdom. Like, fall into it with them. And like the days that I fall into it with my kids, man, it's the best day ever.
It's just wonderful. It is.
And that's where having access to that feminine circuit is so critical. If I'm stuck in my masculine circuit, I'm like, hey kids, like, let's get back in the house. Like, let's get dinner going. Let's do this and that. Where if I can get in my feminine circuit, it's like, no, dude, let's play on the lawn. Let's enjoy the sunset. Let's go see the animals. I'm way more likely to do that. And the time scales come off of everything because I've turned the masculine off for the time being. And when I've gotten good at flip-flopping between the two, it's like the drive to the office is to get me locked in on my masculine. The drive home from the office is to get me locked in on my feminine, because I want that available for my wife and I want that available for my children.
Yeah.
And the more I understand the chakras, a woman has a feminine root. So her sacral chakra is masculine. And so when you can turn your sacral chakra on in an environment where you're not trying to get laid, you're allowing her to dump chi. And so if you don't do that for her, if you are not able to come out of your solar plexus and into your sacral, you'll hear a lot. I just, I need more romance. I feel like you don't hear me. And then if you're in the mental side of things and in your masculine, you go, oh, she needs a date. She wants me to get flowers. She wants this. She wants that. That's not what the fuck she wants. She wants you to take all of her chi from the sacral chakra and cycle it through yours. And then you become an infinity loop of energy between the two circuits, where if you're stuck in your solar plexus, she's negatively charged as a being. So all the positive ion, all the positively charged light in the environment is going to be attracted to her like static cling. So when you get home from work, everything your son said that was rude, this sandwich sucks, mommy, that'll come soon. I don't like this show. I hate you, mommy. All that stuff stuck to her. And so if you can go into that feeling circuit, she can dump it all on you without dumping it through her throat chakra about how stressful and horrible her day was.
Wow.
And she just dumps it through your sacral, and now you both feel good because her bad energy is gas for the tank in your body.
Wow.
And so I probably have to draw something up and share it with you.
Yeah.
Because when you understand the stack of the chakras, me and you have a masculine root chakra. So our sacral chakra is feminine. And when I have channeled my sacral chakra, she told me she's like a nymphomaniac teenager.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And as I've activated this in my wife, she has a nymphomaniac teenage boy.
Wow.
Where when you're out of polarity, you're coming to her in your masculine, in your solar plexus, and you're not, the energy exchange is not correct. And so that's the, okay, you've probably had the experience when you go have sex and then you just want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
That's that you had backward sex. When you leave that experience, you should be charged up and extra mental.
Yeah.
Like you should be like, oh shit, like I just got struck with all sorts of ideas, all sorts of energy. Like you should reduce her stress. She needs to eat and go to sleep. And now you're animated.
Wow. That is not what you hear in society.
I know. And so I had to go into Tantra and Tantra traditions to figure out what the hell I was doing, because I kept having this experience. And now it's like 2 a.m. and I'm supposed to go to work the next day, but I'm just up having philosophical thoughts and drawing sacred geometry. And she's like passed out on the couch, but I'm all activated now. And so I started to notice that it was a relationship to how my chakras were operating. And so if I'm making my sacral chakra masculine, we didn't even go into this, but I had been told in high school that I had irritable bowel syndrome. And essentially what that meant was if I got excited, I was going to have diarrhea. And so that was excitement because I'm excited or excitement because I'm anxious. Didn't really matter. Either way, it was going to express itself in the same way. And so I started figuring out that the key to having that go away was sacral chakra management. And so I knew that the sacral chakra was negative. So I'd take my positive hand and I'd put it on my tummy, and I'd take my negative hand and put it on the back side of that. And I just go into my stomach and try to calm it down. Well, as I would calm it down, it would have an effect on my wife that was like, now she's interested in me sexually, when that was not my intention. And so then I'm like, I'm not going to stop doing that. It makes my stomach stop hurting and I get laid. So I keep leaning into it. And she goes, I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, it's like doing something to me. And I have more energy. I have more passion. I have more ideas. Everything's flowing. And then from my side of the experience, it's like I have more energy to do everything I need to do. My mood is regulated. I have control over these energy circuits, and now I can use them correctly. And so your masculine side's housing your throat, your solar plexus, and your root, and your feminine side is housing your sacral, your heart, and your third eye. And that's why people, when they have tantric sex practices, they tend to have psychic visions and shit, because you're turning on that feminine channel. And so as I've started to work with the energy like this, I'm noticing more and more that I can control. It's going to get into that I'm a manipulator, a narcissistic manipulator. But everyone's entrained to this. And so that's why when you're in more unconscious states in your relationship, if you say something that's a bit out of the pocket and you know that you pissed your chick off, but she goes, oh, no, everything's fine. You're like, no, it's not. That's your psychic. You know it's not. She can deceive you with her words, but you know it wasn't. And so as you start leaning into that, now all of a sudden it's like, no, if I come into every environment with my solar plexus lit up, I'm in charge. Literally, it's in the language. I'm in charge. Everyone else is in their feelings. And so then you talk to them and they'll say, oh, I'm tired. You're in your feelings. Oh, I'm hungry. You're in your feelings. Oh, I'm depressed. You're in your feelings. And so all those people are going to give you authority if you're in your solar plexus, because they're just trained to energy. And so then I started to look at the corporate structure, because I work in business. If I'm talking to a shot caller or someone with a high level of hierarchy, they have some sort of a thing next to their name that makes them be in charge. I'm talking to a solar plexus. That's a yellow person. And so the solar plexus, if you wanted to manipulate them, operates on respect. So if you can find a place where they didn't show you respect, or they're not respecting themselves, or they didn't respect their colleague, you can send them into a spiral into their feelings by poking that respect button. Then everyone who works within a factory or does real labor is in their sacral chakra, in their feelings. And their feelings make it so they have to work every day. For some reason, they believe in their feelings and their identity that they're supposed to suffer every day to make ends meet. Where the solar plexuses have figured out, no, I think and talk and speak, and I think I work smarter, not harder. Where the feelings crowd works harder, not smarter.
Wow.
And you were talking about the waveforms. Someone who's in their root chakra, that's survivalist, that's infrared light. It's a huge red band of light with giant amplitude and low frequency. So the gapping between where it crosses the equator or the ground is a really big gap and a really long wave. When I fly my quad, my remote works on that style of signal to go really far, because I need a lot of amplitude to go really far. Where if you want to carry an image like what we're looking at right now, you need a faster frequency like 5G, where 5G is like 5.8 megahertz or something, gigahertz. And so its amplitude's really low, but the frequency is super crazy high. That's how all the chakras work. And so the biggest amplitude, lowest frequency is your root, and then it just comes up from there, right? So the solar plexus people the solar plexus is called the solar plexus because it moves just like the sun. And so its amplitude and sine wave looks like a yin yang symbol, because a yin yang symbol is a symbol for unpolarized light from the sun.
What? Wow. This is wow. And so what have you been doing to, I guess, align and open your chakras?
So it started with opening my heart chakra and removing obstructions about what I thought about my identity. And it sounds really weird, but you're into really weird stuff. My dead grandfather showed up with crystal aliens, and I'm laying on the floor with my hands on my heart with my eyes shut. I'm pretty much in like laying meditation.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this as a vision with my eyes closed. And he pulled something out of my heart chakra. It was like big, long, and like tarry and weird. And it was like, Grandpa thought you were lazy. And I was like, that's weird, because my how I remember my grandfather as being very cool and understanding of my identity and like how I behaved and what I was into. He was always, he told me 9/11 was an inside job when I thought that 9/11 wasn't an inside job. So that's kind of how radical my grandfather was. And so I'm going, when did this happen? And my grandpa told me, he's like, dude, at some point your dad came to pick you up and I had been watching you at the house and you sat around all day watching Cartoon Network. And I was kind of talking shit to your father. And I just was like, Brian's being lazy. And you took that and put it as part of your identity. And I don't want you to have that anymore. That wasn't intended for you. And so that was like the first one that came out of me. And that was the Capricorn and Cancer one, where my marketplace identity is saying, oh, well, I'm kind of lazy. But then my family shows up and goes, no, you're not, dude. When you're passionate about something, you go harder than anybody else. That's not your story. And so it started with opening my heart chakra. And so I opened my heart chakra. I'm getting more mobility in the system. It's like my OEM setup from God was I got my Manipura, which is your solar plexus, and my sacral chakra. So I can be a pervert and I can go get what I need. But I didn't have the rest of the system on board. And the only other times I turned the system on was through taking different types of chi medicine. So ecstasy precursors, cannabis, mushrooms would turn these systems on and I would have interactions with them. But I totally thought it was spiritual and outside my reach as a sober guy. So starts clearing the heart. Start clearing out the heart, start realizing that you can birth shit out of you that doesn't need to be in you. So I go into my solar plexus as my next escapade, and the solar plexus pretty much told me it's a warrior, and whatever it shows up for, we're going to do it. And the reason it fails is because the others don't show up. And it's like, it's because the sacral chakra won't show up and come with me. It's like, I'm the disciplined one. I show up no matter what, but that's when you turn into the printer and there's no meaning in any of it. And he's like, we always win, but if there's a team, it's more fun. There's a celebration afterwards. There's attaboys. There's high fives. If I do it alone, that's when you got that payday and it didn't hit. That's when you got that big account you wanted and it lasted for 5 minutes. And so then it was like, okay, I got to go into my sacral. And because I'm a pervert and a Scorpio, I thought there was going to be nothing to be found there. Huh, what a crock. So going into my sacral, I meet that 14-year-old girl. And she's like, I'm the hottest girl in the room. I'm the reason why you're an attention whore. And then I realized I was in a competition with my wife. And when I go to a party, she's the hot bitch, not me.
Yes.
And I was jockeying around and dancing like a monkey for everybody's attention so I wouldn't have to run up against competition for that hot girl. So, of course, that charismatic, cool guy with all the cool stuff to say has a hot girl with him. rather than just standing and let my hot girl talk for me. And so that was that opening and fixing the sacral, was saying, hey, dude, let her be the hot chick. She's your hot chick. And then I also told the sacral chakra, if you play ball more and let me be the charismatic, fun one, I'll get you laid more than you know what to do with. But if you throw a fit when I got to go to Disneyland and make me feel bad and make me not want to go and make me resist the whole thing, you're not getting laid after. If anything, you're just going to bed and you're tired because you spent all your money at Disneyland. And so working those 3 circuits was like the first quarter of the year. And now I'd say probably the last quarter has been working on the root. And I didn't even have a root going, dude, to be honest with you. I was not grounded. I just was really, really great at faking it.
Yeah.
And so when I went into the ground, I'm like, dude, what's going on? Why are you still presenting fear and anxiety? And it started with, well, we're scared mom's going to die. And there was like a big integration of the fear of my parents dying. And so I had to take ideas from the upper room, which is, man, nobody dies. It's all just energy. We're all together right now. You can't destroy energy. It just transforms. You have to understand that about yourself. We turn these cars in. We like these cars. We get nostalgic about these cars. We have huge attachments to these cars, but when they're broken down, we shouldn't expect people to live in them. We shouldn't, out of our own insecurity and our own attachment, ask people to suffer in suits that don't work. And so as I did that, I started to awaken and fix my root chakra. And now it's been a lot of discovery about the root chakra and how I'm noticing that most men in the environment have a false bottom and their identities are built on that feminine circuit of the sacral chakra. And so if I get laid, I'm a good boy. I'm fulfilled. I'm happy. I'm a good boy. If women still flirt with me, I'm happy. I'm fulfilled. I'm a good boy. I'm a handsome boy. I make enough money. I'm a good boy. Yeah. And so the fuck boy identity, all of these different identities, like the fuck boy is going, I've gotten so much response from all these different people. And so then when you interact with these people, right, all the people who threw gnarly shade at you over the last 6 months, they attacked your feeling circuit because they think that's where your castle's built. You're moving your castle to the root. You can't mess with the castle. It's the 3 pigs. Your house is built from straw. Your house is built from stone. If you ground it, your house is built from stone. Throw stones, dude. Like I didn't like seeing that stone. I didn't like being reminded of my glass house. But it also reminds me why I built a stone one.
Wow. That, mate, you've got all the things tying. I wish I could give everybody my brain right now and like all the conversations I've had recently and everything just tying in so perfectly, especially around like the matriarch, the good boy, how that plays out in society as we grow up. Like, hey, miss, can I please go to the bathroom? Yeah, okay, yeah. Hey, miss, we were brought up by the female. We were brought up by the feminine, and that became sacred. Like our mothers have been sacred. You can't, mum's perfect, and all this, and how that plays out. If I just do the right thing, I'll get laid, and I'll be a good boy. Wow, yeah, that's.
And all I've noticed is the energetics are way more important. Like I shouted about all the things I needed to my wife for years till I was blue in the face. And when I went inside and just worked my own energy, now I'm that guy. I used to be the guy that couldn't figure out how to get laid and was coming home and just playing dad and going to work and getting money and doing that whole thing. And I think I'm a good boy, but I'm not getting any of the stuff that good boys get. And then I reorient the energy, and now I don't have to ask her what I need. She knows what I need, and vice versa. It's like open the whole channel up to where now my solar plexus is her solar plexus. So if you need me to do something, you don't have to remind me. It's already on board. we're already talking psychically. I remember we need dog food. Where before it's like, will you text me and remind me that I need to stop and get dog food on the way home from work? And then you really didn't take it off her plate anyways. She's still fucking reminding you like her son.
Oh, I'm excited to get into some work, eh?
Dude.
The real work.
So it started as meditating, and the meditation was like kind of just a knockoff of like any general breathing exercise meditation. And I bought a book on Reiki for my wife. She had interest in Reiki, and my power was out. So I was looking in the Reiki book, hence putting my hands on my chakras. And then it was like I recognized that I had the ability to do Reiki on myself. And it was really profound and cool. And then it was like, man, I actually have some agency in here. I can actually like move some stuff around. And so then it just became, no, it's not a meditation. I'm doing like self-exploration. And then depending on what chakra I would interact with, the message would change. And so if I'm interacting with the heart chakra, it's all these concepts, holistic concepts of society, my greater family, the things I have gratitude for, all of this. If I go into the solar plexus, it's way more direct. These would be constructive moves for the warrior to take. If I would go into my sacral, it would give me reprieve from thought, because that's how I'm feeling. So if I get out of my solar plexus, I don't have to have a racing mind. The solar plexus is the idea machine. And so I was using these traditional meditative methods of quieting the mind through breath. And it's like, no, all I got to do is go to my root chakra or my sacral chakra, and I can't think. And then if I'm in my solar plexus and I don't like the thoughts, then I'll move it up and have more fun thoughts, more profound thoughts that seem outside my normal consciousness. And so then it just became like, I have a controller. I can just use this controller. And so in the same way that you've been yelling at the AI to take what you're channeling and put it together for you, I don't have the relationship to AI, but anyone who would give me their ear, I have to yell this at them. And I'm like, no, dude, you don't understand. Like, I'm interacting with my nervous system and I'm using it to run my body correctly. And it's not woo-woo. It's your nervous system. It's just for some reason, the Hindus and the Buddhists had the nervous system tech, and we called it religion because we've been exposed to Christianity and Catholicism and Judaism. It's really Kabbalah magic too. If you want to go look at Kabbalah magic, it's same.
Just started looking into the Kabbalah.
Yeah,
online.
dude, get in there, bro.
Holy shit. I'm like, wow. Okay.
It's excellent. And then when you start utilizing it correctly, like I always would trip out that the black pillar in Freemasonry and in Kabbalah is the feminine pillar, and they put severity there. And as I've been a father, I've noticed why. Woman being severe tells you a bunch of stuff you don't really want to hear about yourself, but you probably should hear it. Where severity in a man is dangerous. It's violence.
Yeah.
And so it gives your wife the opportunity to discipline your son. And then you come in as the antidote.
Yeah.
To that he just got some from his mom. And your wife is a queen. She doesn't need you to support her in her violence. She needs you to support her son, who she was severe with. And then it offers this crazy balance back and forth of, we corrected the behavior, but then we put you back in your good vibe. You don't have to stick in this shit vibe all day because mom said some bad stuff to you. Where I feel like a lot of our generation has a lot of hang time from stressful scenarios because dad maybe backed up mom, or dad wasn't even there. So you're dealing with bad cop, or just bad
all the time. Wow. Oh, Brian, this has been Yeah, inspirational. This has
Dude.
been fantastic. Just for me personally, and from a selfish perspective,
Well,
thank
we
you
are
very much.
narcissistic egomaniacs.
Well, it's a valid point. It's a very valid point. But I'm looking forward to this. I know it's going to be hard for a lot of guys to probably listen to. It's going to be a challenge. There's going to be ideas and things, but for the right people, this will hit. And thank you so much for sharing it, man.